Hello, and welcome to the exciting field of engineering. I'm very excited that you have decided to look into this field because we need many more engineers than we already have, and it's a very exciting field to work in. Now, you may want to know up front, what is engineering? Well, engineering is basically just taking mathematical and scientific principles and making it useful for the everyday person like you to use and to have a useful product. And we will delve deeper into what engineers do this and what engineers as a group actually do. So there are four main branches of engineering. This is chemical, civil, electrical, and mechanical engineering. Each of these is very different, but also very interdependent on the others. And basically every other branch of engineering is considered to come off of these four main engineering disciplines. So let's start with chemical engineering. Chemical engineers take chemicals, elements, and other different substances and develop new products like plastics and cleaning agents. And you may have heard of some of their different fabrics: rayon, nylon. Basically, they take their knowledge of chemical laws and basic physics to make just about anything. And this has become a huge market lately, considering the demand for products that can only be manufactured at these small scales. So it's a very exciting field. Civil engineering is probably the branch with which you are most familiar. It involves the design and construction of structures for civilian use. So, as a public citizen, any structure that you come in contact with, may it be a park, a theater hall, an airport, a bus terminal, anything that you can think of that's public, has been designed, built, and maintained by civil engineers. And without them, the wheels of society would certainly come to a grinding halt. As you may have guessed, electrical engineers work with electricity. And it's everything from giant electrical power stations to the smallest cell phone that you carry around with you wherever you go. Without them, you wouldn't be able to watch this video right now where I explain electrical engineering, because they have had a hand in the design of your device. Mechanical engineering is the very last of the four main branches of engineering, and really the original branch of engineering. Back when man first invented the wheel and used it to help him move things around better, mechanical engineering has been there. Mechanical engineering is essentially just the design, improvement, or invention of anything and everything that moves and is not found in nature. Not to say that they can't be inspired by nature, as many of them have. And it is a very wide field. Anything from the hinge on your laptop that lets it move up and down to the jet engines that keep your airliner in the sky. So, anything that moves, and even some things that don't move, since the mechanical aspects of the machines that made that device or product did move, and therefore were affected by mechanical engineering. Now, this is another branch of engineering. It's not is very related to the four main branches, but it is in itself its own discipline. But it draws on all four of the other disciplines. It takes chemical engineers to make the fuels to actually provide the power for these rockets. You need civil engineers to build the launch pads. You need electrical engineers to do the control systems and every computer and wire that sits inside of these ships. And you pretty obviously need mechanical engineers because, believe me, when these rockets go, they are moving very fast. Now, of course, this all culminates into aerospace engineering, which by itself is essentially anything that has to do with putting something in space and having it operate properly. Now, let's take an example of something that engineers have developed and has made your life better. Around 1900, a new technology was being developed, and you may have heard of it before. It's called radio. Now, this has affected every aspect of human life and every innovation since then in such a profound way, because ever since then, you have been able to communicate instantaneously with anybody, anywhere, at the speed of light. So it's a very big deal, and some very smart people, including a bunch of engineers, are responsible for bringing radio to the masses. So obviously, I can't go over every single person who has contributed to radio, but we can go over a few of the main guys. Nikola Tesla is credited with the first experiments with radio. He first displayed it in the form of a remote control boat. Now, many people thought this was a toy at first, and it was, but the technology within it was very important. Now, you never hear about Nikola Tesla. You usually hear about a guy named Guglielmo Marconi. Marconi is credited as the inventor because he was the very first person to send a transatlantic radio signal. Now, this was a big deal considering beforehand the only thing that you could do was either send a wire through the ocean, which could get damaged, or to send mail over the ocean, which of course took days, and this could do it instantaneously. Now, Tesla did get the last laugh. In 1943, Tesla was given patent rights to the radio, unfortunately posthumously, since he had died 6 months earlier. Now, you may wonder, why was he given patent rights for a little boat? Well, he was given patent rights because Guglielmo Marconi, when he did his radio transmission across the Atlantic, happened to be using 17 of Tesla's patents. In 1949, the transistor was invented and improved radio immensely. From then on, you could amplify weak signals and it could be smaller and easier to power, leading to every modern convenience that we have today that can connect via radio signals, from your TV to your cell phone to your computer device, most likely, considering you probably have Wi-Fi since you're watching this video at all. So, very wide-reaching. Now, this is at 1900, and the world is very different now. One of our main problems now is engineering, and it's in engineering. Yes, we do have a problem with few engineers, but we also have a very big problem with energy. Energy is very hard to come by, and a lot of people need it. And of course, the main method for producing energy now is to burn things. May it be coal, oil, natural gas, wood, biomass, whatever it might be. And this is very dirty, and it releases a lot of toxins and bad things into the environment. It's also not sustainable because once it's burned, it cannot be burned again. Now, one of the main contenders for our energy future is solar power. It's very readily available, it's very easy to implement, and it's very safe. Nobody's ever had a problem with a solar panel array going through a meltdown, at least not the kind of problems that happen when a nuclear power plant goes through the same problem. Alas, solar energy does bring its own challenges. So let's look at how engineers have approached this. Solar energy is the problem is solar energy is very expensive at the moment. It's pretty fragile, not fragile as glass, but it's still pretty easy to break it. And it's also pretty inefficient at the moment. Only about 40% of light that strikes a solar panel will actually be converted into usable electricity. The rest is either reflected or turned into heat. Now, one of the solutions that engineers have put forward, and this is a serious solution, is that we can launch solar arrays into space and send them in orbit around the sun. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what's the point of sending it up into space? Well, in addition to the fact that you can build very large things in space very easily, we have a huge blanket of gases around our Earth. You may have heard of it. It's called the atmosphere. This diffuses light coming from the sun. If we could deploy collectors outside the atmosphere, it would greatly improve the efficiency of solar power and make it cheaper and more productive. Now, let's look more specifically about how aerospace engineers would come into play here. Obviously, if it's in space, you need somebody who knows how to put things in space and keep them operating. Obviously, this is right up an aerospace engineer's alley. It's also very expensive to send things into space. But aerospace engineers are getting better all the time. One day, it will most likely be easier to set up one of these stations than it would be to set up an Earth station. And this is just what engineers do. They tackle problems like this every day. And the problems keep piling up, but they're ready to take them. Which is why I'm so glad that you've decided to potentially look into engineering, because it's a very needed field. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I've definitely enjoyed presenting it to you. Thank you. Goodbye.